Hi, my name is Courtney Masters.
And I'm Rose White.
And we're both junior computer science digital media majors at Taylor. A company that I have a few family connections with asked me if I'd be interested in creating a Christmas light show for them. I didn't know how hard or what scale the project would be, but it sounded fun, so I said sure. Since I didn't know how big of a project it would be, I asked Rose if she'd be interested in helping me out.
It sounded cool, design-oriented, but still really techy. I was in.
We went into this project with pretty much zero knowledge of how we were going to do things. Originally, we just planned to get all the hardware squared away and spend most of our time sequencing, which is deciding the actual timing of when each bulb flashes during the song.
We didn't really have a lot of experienced professionals to ask questions to, so we were really left to the internet, which proved to be very broad and very confusing. We began by reaching out to Rob Cartwright, who's an engineering professor here at Taylor University. And he's had some experience with Christmas lights before and coding them on an Arduino board. And so he was basically able to teach us the ins and outs of the hardware. He also pointed us to some software resources for light show sequencing.
After doing a bit of research, we decided to go with X-Lights for the software that we were going to use for the sequencing and display design. We chose this software because it was free, it was pretty widely used, so there was lots of YouTube videos and lots of question and answer help session type things.
One of the resources that we used a lot for X-Lights was actually a Facebook help group. Me and Courtney were working on our display and we were honestly pretty confused because the interface was not very intuitive. Luckily, we found a mentor who was able to show us the ins and outs of how to set up shapes on the display and how to connect that to the underlying hardware.
I knew that the clients had already tried to make a light show in the past, so I knew they already had some hardware. I reached out to them to talk about specifics, and that's when we realized that they had already purchased an expensive subscription to Lightorama, which is comparable to X-Lights, but it's just a different user interface, different software completely, which is compatible with different controllers that the client already owned. And that's when we realized that we needed to switch to Lightorama, and so we had to learn a whole new interface.
Luckily, I was able to find another Facebook group for Lightorama and another mentor who was able to answer all of our questions.
We ended up hearing about this nationwide light show conference that was happening over Zoom. We went and ended up going to 6 different lectures covering various things like hardware, choosing which controller is your best fit, weatherproofing your lights, creating a dynamic display, a lot of things that we had never thought to learn about before.
We talked to the customer and they decided that they were willing to pay the extra cost to purchase RGB lights instead of AC lights. RGB lights make your show much more colorful, dynamic, whereas AC lights are basically a strand of lights at Walmart you could buy that basically turn on and off, fade, and only have one color.
Just when we thought we were ready to start sequencing, we found out from our mentor that if we wanted to use RGB lights, we'd have to fine-tune our display a little bit more. That meant knowing exactly how many strands were on each prop, exactly how many bulbs or nodes were on each prop, how far apart they were, and which port in the controller they were connected to. Well, that sounds like not too complicated. It ended up involving a lot of math and a lot of time. Finally, it was time for the fun part, sequencing. But this involved looking up a lot of inspiration videos, a lot of YouTube tutorials with how to use motion effects, and just how to use the software in general.
We already have a few songs sequenced and we're hoping to have 10 completed by this Christmas season.
And in the future, who knows? Maybe we'll expand this to be a 4th of July show as well. Maybe we'll start taking on new clients, or maybe when you come back in the fall, Taylor will be decked out in lights.
Lost, but now been found. Was blind, but now I see.
Mary, did you know that your baby boy is Lord of